In a small forgotten corner of the world, where mornings were quieter and evenings were colder, lived a man named Raymond Hale, 78 years old, thin, slow, and nearly invisible to the world around him. For years he believed that his body had already written its last chapter. He walked with a slight bend in his back, his breaths were shallow, and his steps were soft like fading memories. People who crossed him in the street offered polite smiles, the kind people give when they think someone is too old to change anything. Raymond lived alone. His children were grown, each busy in their own lives, and his wife had passed away a decade earlier. His home was filled with silence and the soft ticking of a clock that seemed to remind him of one thing. Time was moving and he was standing still. Every morning he sat on the same wooden chair near his window, staring outside as younger people jogged through the park. Their energy, their laughter, their strength. It all looked like a distant world he could never return to. But deep inside him, beneath the layers of age and exhaustion, there was still a spark, a stubborn little flame refusing to die. He didn't show it to anyone, not even to himself, but it was there, a small whisper that said, "You're not done yet." One morning something changed. As he stood up from his chair, he felt his knees buckle. And for a moment he lost his balance. He held onto the table, heart pounding, breath shaking. It frightened him, not just the weakness in his legs, but the sudden realization that if he continued like this, he might one day not get up at all. He sat back down slowly, staring at his trembling hands. His heart whispered again, louder this time, "If I don't fight now, I may never fight again." That moment became the spark that would transform everything. The next day, before sunrise, he decided to step outside. The cold morning air stung his skin, but it also woke something in him. He walked slowly to the small park near his home. The world was quiet. Even the birds hadn't started singing. It was just him, the soft wind, and the first decision he had made in years: to try. He began with the simplest movement he could think of, lifting his arms. Just raising them slowly, letting his shoulders stretch, reminding his body it still had a purpose. His arms felt heavy, stiff, stubborn, but he continued. 10 seconds passed, 20. His breath grew uneven, but he forced himself to hold on. People walking by saw only an old man stretching half-heartedly, but they didn't know what it meant. They didn't know that this tiny movement was a war he was fighting, against age, against weakness, against fear. Every morning he returned, and every morning he added just one small step, one extra breath, one more second of holding his posture. He practiced the wall sit for the first time, leaning against a park wall for just 5 seconds. His legs trembled like leaves in a storm, and he felt the burning pain that made him want to quit instantly. But he whispered, 5 seconds today, 10 seconds tomorrow, and he kept his promise. Within a few weeks, his body began remembering strength, the strength he thought was gone forever. His back straightened a little. His breath grew deeper. His steps became firmer. The neighborhood joggers started noticing him. At first, they simply nodded. Then they began smiling, waving, cheering him on. He didn't know their names, but their encouragement became fuel. Raymond started integrating new exercises: slow, controlled lunges, assisted squats using a bench, chair stands to build leg power, balance holds with arms stretched forward. Every small movement created a small victory inside him. He kept a diary with him, a small leather notebook. After every exercise, he wrote a date, time, and how he felt. The first pages were filled with words like tired, painful, and difficult. But slowly, the words changed. Better, stronger, lighter, possible. One windy morning, as he was practicing deep breathing exercises, a young boy named Liam approached him. The boy had seen him every morning and finally worked up the courage to speak. "Sir, why do you come here every day?" Raymond smiled at him gently and said, "Because life feels different when you fight for it." The boy thought for a moment and then sat down next to him, copying his breathing exercises. And from that day on, he joined him every morning. Slowly, others joined too. A woman in her 40s struggling with knee pain, a retired soldier rebuilding his stamina, an elderly lady who wanted to feel young again. They all found inspiration in a man who had once believed his best days were behind him. Raymond became their quiet leader, not because he was the strongest, but because he understood what it felt like to lose strength. He taught them not to rush, not to chase perfection, but to chase consistency. Small steps, he said, create big changes. Months passed, and something incredible happened. His eyes became brighter. His shoulders became straighter. His laughter returned, a sound he hadn't heard from himself in years. He felt alive again in a way he couldn't explain. One morning he stood in front of a long staircase in the park. For years he avoided it because it reminded him of what he could no longer do. But today he placed his hand on the railing. He took a deep breath, and he began climbing, step by step, slow, steady, determined. Halfway up, he felt his legs burning, but he didn't stop. When he reached the top, he looked over the city as the morning sun washed over him. Tears filled his eyes, not from pain, but from victory. He whispered, "I am not done yet." The news of his transformation spread through the neighborhood. People began walking more. Families came to the park together. Seniors who felt hopeless started moving again. Raymond's story was no longer just his own. It became a source of